Welcome to the week one go-to session. This is the first of four such sessions we'll be having this month, thanks to those who are in attendance and thanks to those who are going to be watching this lecture. These lectures are always recorded because not everybody can show up at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night. That's when these lectures are held. So first of all, welcome to English Composition. I look forward to working with you this month. This class is a bit more of a sprint than a marathon, meaning that there's a lot of work to do over these 4 weeks, but it always goes by really quickly, not just for students, but for instructors as well. So welcome aboard. You should be able to see my screen. Hopefully most of you have completed the getting started activities. Those who are in attendance obviously are here at the lecture, so you already found that registration link. Actually, that's found in each week's point 2 activity, 1.2, 2.2, and so on. There's always a link to the lecture sign up. But hopefully you guys have clicked through the other things. Meet your instructor, there's a short video to watch, but more importantly, there's my schedule so you can see when I'm available. I just corrected, like literally in the past 5 minutes, a small error there was in the McGraw-Hill. So let me go there real quickly. So let me show what it looks like for you guys, the student view. I noticed that the dates were all wrong. So it still has a weird start date showing like early January. I couldn't fix that once the course was underway, but the due date has now been moved to March 1st, which is the end of this class. Okay. As you can see, readings are neatly organized by week. So this is what you should see when you go in. So if you just click on the little down arrow here, it shows you. And you just click on this little arrow to get going. The readings are short. There are a lot of pictures. You can always ignore the stuff that's in green because sometimes there are like thought activities. You just have to literally read. So as you can see, like there's one reading. So it's pretty simple, and you can click next to get to the next part. As you can see, there's a big picture that takes up a lot of space. I am fine with the reading for gist. In other words, it doesn't mean that you're skimming everything, but it's much more important to me that you come away with like the big picture ideas in the reading rather than you memorizing every little piece. Okay. Um, so if any of you were, if any of you spotted the error, like you went into the readings and couldn't access them, that's because there was the date problem that I needed to fix. Okay. But McGraw-Hill should be a snap to sign up for. And professionalism, this is a month-long grade. So some people panic because they don't complete the activity on time and they think they've gotten a 0. No, actually, I'll go in and give everybody 100 because it begins with 100, and then I only take off points if there are egregious problems like missed assignments, or I don't know, you curse out a fellow classmate or the instructor, something like that. Otherwise, assume that the 100 will be in your back pocket. Speaking of late assignments, we do have a late policy, which is 5 points per day. So it's not a tremendous amount. So it always behooves you to get your work in. So if something is due, for example, the very first assignment in week one is due, well, it has kind of two portions. You're encouraged to get your first post done by tomorrow night, then to respond to at least one classmate by Sunday. So I'll talk about this activity in more detail in just a moment. But for most of the other weeks, you're always going to have something due on a Wednesday and on a Sunday. Wait a second. Oh no, that's a grammar check. Something due on a Wednesday. So week 2, there's something due on the 12th, and then there's something due on a Sunday, the 16th. Okay. But let's say you don't get this done by the 12th. Well, hand it in on the 13th. There's only a 5-point deduction. The 5-point deduction is up to 3 days, 72 hours. After then, I'm supposed to record a 0, but I've been known to accept work past that point. I mean, obviously there are deductions, but the important thing is to get work in. Because here's the thing, everybody passes this class with either an A or a B. The only time people get into trouble is when they don't complete work. Or occasionally they complete work, but it looks nothing like what's actually been assigned. So you can't just hand in anything, right? It has to actually be the assignment. But other than that, people pass this class with flying colors. Even if, let's say, you don't get the grade you desire on the major writing activities, the assignments, there's so many other makeup points that people still earn either an A or a B because they make up for it elsewhere. For example, there are grammar quizzes to take. These are worth 5%. You basically get an automatic 100 for doing. Yes, Matthew, A, B, or F. Those are kind of the three grading categories. There are sometimes people who end up with a C or they pass by the skin of their teeth. The lowest passing grade is a 70, a D. But again, they're usually in that situation because they've missed a key assignment or two, not because they've been getting C's and D's on everything they handed. Um, so yeah, keep that in mind. You do have a lot of things like these grammar quizzes, which I won't talk about until next week, but you basically get 100 points just for trying, um, I believe. So when you add up things, there's approximately, let's see, the grammar quizzes are worth whole 10%. Professionalism is worth 10%. So yeah, there's like 20% at least that's in your back pocket of a perfect 100. Asmir asks, how much writing do we have to do? Both more than you think and less than you think. The writing assignments tend to be shorter, but there are a bunch of them. So for example, this first week, there's more writing than you think. So we'll talk about this activity in just a moment, but it requires you to write 2 paragraphs, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it takes time to write 2 nice proofread paragraphs. And then this assignment, which I'll also talk about in detail, the first main assignment, is a summary. Okay, you're just going to read an article and summarize it. I think the minimum word count is 300, which is like a page and a quarter. So lots of short assignments, but nothing, you shouldn't be frightened by this class. Okay, again, just remember what I said. Everyone who submits work and does so on time and is making a good, honest attempt, it's nearly impossible not to get an A or B in this class. I think I'm an easy instructor. Some people would disagree, but even the assignments themselves, I don't know. It's like you really have to screw up massively to earn a low grade. I mean, even if a person's writing skills aren't that sharp, I mean, how many points can I really take off for grammar, right? I mean, so yeah, don't be too frightened. People pass this class and they pass it easily. The only time they get in trouble is again if they miss assignments or they just hand in work that I have to say, what is this? I don't recognize what this is. This is not the assignment. Okay. Matthew says, we using MLA? No, we're going to use APA. And in this session, I'm going to teach you what you need to know for this week. Okay. APA is much simpler now in that it's really just layout. And for this first assignment, it's layout and a reference, which I'm going to show you in real time how to do. So if you want to, you can even have a blank Microsoft Word document open if you want to follow along. Or you can just skip ahead to this part of the lecture because it is recorded and simply follow along then. But you'll see, it's a snap. It's very easy. The final thing I want to mention is that the quickest way to get in touch with me is just to use this little messaging function. I think everybody knows this, but occasionally I get an email. And I should be checking email every day, but sometimes I'm not so good at it because so few students send me emails. I still think of email as this extraordinary advancement because when it first came along in the early 90s, I thought it was amazing. I mean, you don't have to write a letter and put it in an envelope and send it. You can just type, immediately click, boom, the other person has it. But I guess for younger people, they see email as old-fashioned, right? Like who wants to write an email? When you can text, when you can tweet, when you can post to Facebook, right? Much quicker results. Most people have gotten that message, but occasionally I do get emails. But the quickest way to get in touch with me is simply to send me a message, okay? Because this is where I'll be checking for things. Okay, that's kind of the bureaucratic stuff that I wanted to cover. Oh, one more thing. If you ever have problems with FSO, here's the number you should either jot down or memorize. It is found in other documents, like there is a document here under the About section that I think has the FSO tech helpline. But the quickest way is you can either take a screenshot or just jot this down. Anything FSO related, anything computer related. So you're unsure, you have a problem with McGraw-Hill, call FSO tech support, okay? I guess I should put that FSO. You have a problem with your own machine, give SO support. In other words, they're bright people. They know a lot about computers and they can help you out with a range of things, not just FSO related, okay? Because sometimes I get questions I can't help people with because I'm not an expert in I'm not a computer science person. So, okay, let's just jump right into it. So, week one, welcome aboard. Again, I look forward to working with you this month. I'm going to skip the overview because you can read and watch it on your own. This is just a description of the reading assignments, although you can go straight to McGraw-Hill because like I said, they're already organized for you by chapter. And we'll get into the first two activities, okay? Because that's what's most important. What are you doing this week that's graded? So let's take a look at the first one. This is a two-parter. It's your only discussion-based activity of the month. So don't get confused because some students think, oh, everything's always due on a Sunday. No, only week one are both activities kind of due on Sunday. We should probably fix that for consistency's sake, but because it is a discussion, it is pretty standard that one part is due earlier in the week and then one part is due later. Okay, so you have a short video to watch, but in essence, you're going to write your own biography. But you're going to write it twice, okay? Two versions. So 2 paragraphs. In the first paragraph, you're going to write your own bio for peers, okay? So these are people like your friends, your acquaintances, people who know you, family members possibly. It says consider social media. Sometimes I like to say, or imagine your own website or your own blog. If someone clicks on your About Me tab, what would they read? This biography will be written in first person, okay? So you're going to say I or me, and then you're going to rewrite the same information, but for a professional audience. Okay, so this is going to be more formal. This is an exercise in getting you to practice different tones, different styles. It doesn't mean that you throw grammar out the window for this first version. No, they should both be well written. But yeah, one is written for one group of people, one is written for a different group. So let me give an example of this. Okay, so I've done this activity. And even though I know it's not the most thrilling thing to hear the instructor read, I promise I'll read it quickly. But here's the first paragraph, okay? So this one's written in first person, meaning I'm using I'm using I. Okay, all the variations on I, me, my, myself, etc. And see if you can it should be obvious, like what differences there are between the two paragraphs. Here, I'll hide the other one. So this one reads, hello, campers. My name is David. I am a teacher. I've been here at Full Sail for nearly 5 years. That should say 7 now. I should fix that. And before this, I bounced around a lot. I was born in Chicagoland, but I've also lived in, take a deep breath, Galesburg, Illinois, Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Athens, Ohio, Palma de Mallorca, Spain, Columbia, Missouri, and now Orlando, Florida. My hobbies include competitive knitting, matzo ball juggling, and yelling at small children. Okay, that last part is a joke. I'm passionate about all things writing related. I earned my bachelor's degree in English, fiction writing, emphasis, from Knox College, and I earned a master's degree again in English, creative writing, from Ohio University. I even started working toward a doctoral degree, but then my mother said, "You're 35 and still in school?" And so I entered the workforce. In my spare time, I play piano, marathon watch films and television shows, and read lots of books. Serious stuff like literary fiction and political stuff, but my guilty pleasure is page turners. You know, the Twilight series, the occasional sci-fi or fantasy novel, stuff like that. Oh, and I watch lots of sports. I'm a lifelong Chicago Cubs fan. And though I used to follow the NFL, I now know nothing about that league because I only watch college football. Okay, so you can tell this is written in my voice. Okay, it's voice driven, right? It begins, hello, campers. Um, Even specific like verb choices, like I bounced around a lot, right? You probably wouldn't say I bounced around in a more formal piece of writing. I even have asides like take a deep breath. Before I list all the places I've lived, I make a joke, which maybe I should remove, but I don't know. Then I get into details. Another kind of joke, although it's the truth. My mom really did say, "What are you still doing in school?" I list what I do with my hobbies and even get into specific details. But notice, here's the professional version. And what I want you to notice is it covers the exact same information, but it's written for a professional audience. So this time I don't use I. This is probably the number one error I see is that students write both paragraphs in first person. And so the tone is very similar in both. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be flamboyant here. Sometimes I have to caution students when I write feedback and say, I'm all for voice, but I'm a little bit worried that you're being too flamboyant, where people are selling themselves more than just writing a bio. But anyway, here's the professional paragraph. Notice it's half the length. This one says David Sussman has been teaching college level courses for nearly 20 years. He holds degrees in creative writing from Knox College and Ohio University. Previous to coming to Full Sail, David has taught at institutions in Alabama, Illinois, and Missouri. Currently, David teaches English composition at Full Sail University in Orlando, Florida. He's a committed educator who is passionate about writing. In his free time, David enjoys playing piano, viewing films, reading books, and watching his two favorite sports, Major League Baseball and college football. As you can see, it's the same information. But in this one, which is a bit long, I could probably edit this down, probably should. But I could post this as is under like my personal website or blog, okay? If it's directed more towards a everyday audience, people would be more drawn in. But for professionals, yeah, I leave all this stuff out. Hello, campers, take a deep breath. Even little things like, oh, right? Like there's a very kind of conversational tone here, which is difficult to pull off because lots of students want to write in this more down to earth style, which I'm all for, but it's a challenge to do so while still following the rules of grammar and punctuation. Um, yeah, voice driven pieces are in some ways more difficult because you're trying to achieve that tone, that voice, that style, while still having the writing being very crisp and clean, okay, and readable. But it's the same information. So you're going to do the same. You're going to write 2 paragraphs. Now, you don't have to write this much. Okay, this is, let's see how many words it is. 219. Okay, I think the instructions say it should be between 50 and 100 words. 50 is really light. I have no idea why we put the minimum so low. But every single activity, by the way, comes with examples. So even for this assignment, you have another example to look at, and these are more even in length, I guess, right? This was written by another instructor, and this one I'm not going to read out loud, but you already have this example to study. So this might be a better example to study because you're seeing 2 paragraphs that are similar in length, but same deal, okay? She's covering the same information, but this one's written in first person and is a bit more in her own natural voice, while this one delivers the exact same information, but towards a professional audience, okay? So it's a bit more formally written. Does this make sense? The gist of what you're doing here? 2 paragraphs where you get to tell who you are. One written in first person, the other written in third person. So sometimes students find it awkward to write about themselves. Like who do we have here? Asmir, Charles, and Matthews. So Charles might find it awkward to say Charles, and I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. Guerreri? Charles Guerreri is pursuing his blah 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 degree at Full Sail University in X. Okay. Yeah, sometimes it feels weird, but once you get into the flow, it's not awkward at all. Remember, you're not the audience, so it might feel awkward for you to oh, good, I got the name right. Even though it might feel awkward to do so, read over your paragraph as if you're not you. If you read it, then it doesn't strike you as so strange. Okay. Like, yeah, it's a little bit weird for me to refer to myself by my full name, but if I'm pretending I'm not me and I go to a professional website and this is the bio, yeah, I could believe this is a bio, right? It's kind of like hearing your voice. People hear their voice and say, no, that can't be me. That's not my voice because they're not used to hearing it. So they're not used to writing this way. But it is a good exercise in voice, tone, style, and most importantly, audience, okay? That how you speak, how you write changes depending on audience. And plus, it just gives me an opportunity early on to see your writing. Okay. Now, once you have your 2 paragraphs written, you're going to label one for peers, the other one for professionals. You're just going to copy it all and bring it over to the discussion board. Okay. I always forget how I actually get into the discussion board because for me, it's a little bit different. So hold on. Open a new tab. I believe I have to go through it this way. Or maybe not. I never remember. How do I get in here? Or maybe it's over here. Yeah, go to discussion. Okay, you can see Jeffrey's already written. And Some people already responded. That's the other thing. So once you post your 2 paragraphs to the board, you have to respond to at least one classmate. And you should find something like, actually, this is a good response. Salim, who is not here with us tonight. Okay, this seems to be a pretty good response. Mentions what this person likes about Jeffrey's paragraphs. Makes a suggestion. I'd make it a little shorter. Okay. I feel bad about saying this because Jeffrey is not here, but one thing I would point out, can anybody notice an issue? Jeffrey, if you watch this, if you're watching the recording of this, we're not picking on you. Other people do the same thing. Can anybody notice one obvious issue here between the 2 paragraphs? They look like good paragraphs, by the way, but there is one key issue. Good, Charles. Yeah, the second paragraph needs to be written in third person. So Jeffrey, you still have time to go back and edit. Just click edit and do the same thing. It's just right. Hello, my name is. Instead, it's Jeffrey Goins is a student at Full Sail University studying graphic design. Since his time here, he has learned tools and training involved in creating logos to websites. So it's an easy fix. Okay, so yeah, if you can spot issues like that, if someone posts, or if you get a sense that, in your opinion, something could be shorter, like maybe I posted, maybe I'm a student, and you say, listen, I love the voice and I like your joking and but this could be shorter. Like it was a slog to get through. You could lose maybe a third of it and still have it be powerful and voice driven and funny, but it felt too long to me. Like you can make those comments. And in the instructions, which I've gotten out of, I can't remember. We used to have a word count, but I think we got rid of it, which creates lots of problems because some people write a 1 sentence response. Respond to at least one of your classmates. Okay. It does give you some questions to consider. What do you find interesting about their bios? What do you want to know more about? Okay. So yeah, we used to have a word count attached to this, but just try to respond thoughtfully. Read the 2 paragraphs. Point out what you like. If there is room for improvement, you can bring it up. Okay. Try to write more than just 1 sentence. Love this. Great job. Okay, that's going to be an issue. But otherwise, I think this assignment is pretty self-explanatory. There's a rubric you can look at to see how it's graded. I'm trying to see if the word count thing is mentioned here. Word count for BIOS is significantly under minimum. That's a problem though, because we no longer have the word count explained in the instructions. So interpret that as I will use my instincts to tell when a response is just a rush job and when it's not. Be careful about things like these because I'm supposed to take off 5 points for every instance I see it. So if a person doesn't capitalize I or sentences that don't end with punctuation, okay, so be careful. Usually that doesn't happen, but sometimes the student can, fail to proofread. Proofread. Awesome thing is once you've typed your 2 paragraphs, you can use Microsoft Word's spelling and grammar tools to do a run through. Complete. It's perfect. Okay, so we're all clear on this assignment, right? Pretty straightforward. I like this assignment. I think students have some fun with it because they're writing about themselves and they get to do it twice. And plus, it gives me just an example of your writing to respond to. More than anything, that's what I like. Is just having your writing and being able to look at it and give you some feedback. So let's take a look at the other major activity. I'm going to take a sip from my drink. Which is this guy here. This is due Sunday. I mean, they're technically both due on Sunday, but this is kind of the more major activity, though they're worth the same percentage points. So they're both worth 10%. So let's take a look at this. So despite the title, Pop Culture Bites, this is much simpler than this. You are going to choose an article. You have 5 to choose from. One is about Jay-Z and the NFL. One is about video games. Are they really addictive? Another one about Netflix, another one about Harry Potter, and one about music streaming, okay? So you're going to choose one of these articles, just one, and you're going to summarize it. Okay, so you get some instructions. I have some tips to give you in just a moment. But it says read the article carefully using the strategies discussed in your textbook, and then you're going to write a 300 to 400 word summary. Okay, that's it. You're just going to write a summary. And then at the end, there's going to be an APA reference, which I'm going to show you how to do. And the rest of it should be in APA format as well, which I'm going to walk through in a moment. Okay, which means it should be double spaced in 12 point times New Roman, etc. So the only issue here is how do you summarize? Okay, so a summary is essentially a concise shortening. Well, that's what concise means. It's a concise presenting of the article's contents. Okay, in just a page or a page and a half, or I should say maybe a page and a quarter to a page and a half. Some people go a bit longer, so maybe it's 2 pages. Somewhere between a page and a quarter and 2 pages. Okay, where you will explain. For example, are video games really addictive? I think I have this article already opened. So as you can see, the article isn't terribly long, but it does go on for a while. But your summary is not going to be this long. It's your job. Here's the thing. A summary is essentially an article's main overall topic, and quickly you will list its 3 or 4 most important points. So this will be helpful because I have a tip sheet for you. Okay, so here's some summary writing tips. You can take a screenshot, you can take notes, you can come back to the recording of this and simply pause here. But here's some do's and don'ts, okay? So again, I think most people know what a summary is, but it's basically a shorter version of the article itself, written in your own words. That's super important. Written in your own words that communicates what the article is essentially about to another person. Okay, so here's some things you should do in the summary. Include the author's name early on, as well as the author's overall arguments or thesis. Okay. Include the article's most important main points or examples. Again, that's what a summary is. Who wrote it? What is it about overall? And what are the article's most important points? Do provide an accurate, concise overview of the article. I like to say that a perfect stranger should be able to read your summary and understand what the article is about. Okay, because again, summarizing is a skill. Even those of you who don't think you're going to be writing much in your future, you might have to summarize. Okay, right? Even not in writing. Anytime you ask someone to give you the gist, okay, so you watched this documentary, you read this article, tell me what it's about. You should be able to do so with detail, of course, but also succinctly, in much less space than the actual thing itself. Write in third person, so there's no I in this. Okay, it's a completely objective piece of writing. And write in present tense. Okay, the author's main argument is, Smith's next point is, okay, the article exists now. And this applies to all text, by the way. So even though Hamlet is from 400 years ago, we wouldn't write about what the characters do in the play in the past tense. So we wouldn't say when Hamlet met his father, the ghost of his father. We would say when Hamlet meets the ghost of his father. Okay, the action or the content of a text exists now. So we use present tense. Discuss the article's ideas in your own words. Okay, try not to borrow exact wording from the text. So you should not just be going to this article and taking significant chunks of his wording. Mark Lewis is the author. Okay, you should be stating things in your own words. That seems pretty common sense, but I do see times where students are borrowing too much from the actual article. Okay, so what are things to avoid? They're sort of the reverse of what we've already mentioned. Do not include an exhaustive paraphrase of every sentence or every idea. In other words, avoid giving a walkthrough of the article. I do see this. So they'll start in paragraph 1. And even though he begins with an anecdote about his kids, his 12-year-old twin boys, who he has trouble getting off the PlayStation, like I'll see students summarize this, even though this anecdote isn't really key to the article. It's just a clever way to get the reader's interest, right? Begin with a personal anecdote. The real material kind of begins here. But yeah, a walkthrough is like the person's literally going through the entire article, trying to summarize every paragraph. Sometimes it's just a single sentence, but going paragraph by paragraph by paragraph. And that's not a summary. A summary is not a walkthrough. A summary is you, again, hitting on what is the overall article about and what are its 3 or 4 most important points. Okay? So, in other words, avoid walkthrough. On the other hand, do not just cherry pick one interesting point and ignore the rest. I don't think I've ever seen this. Um, do not include your own opinions. I do see this sometimes. You're not voicing your opinions yet. Okay, you are just showing me that you understand what the article is about. The first half of this course, I think students are fine because the summary is a pretty easy assignment for most. And even if students do stumble a little bit in week 1, you'll get another chance to do it all again in week 2, because in week 2 you'll summarize yet another article. So whatever issues existed in week 1, you can fix for week 2. That's awesome. But sometimes halfway through, students get frustrated because is this all we're doing is summarizing? No. There is a method to the madness here. In week 1, again, you'll choose one article. In week 2, you're going to choose another article that we provided for you on the exact same topic, but it takes like the opposite stance. So here is a piece about the author questioning whether video game addiction is truly real. And in week 2, there's another article in which the piece does argue that video game addiction is real and it's serious, and it's about one school district making attempts to curtail excessive video gaming. Okay, so it's a pair of articles. You'll summarize one this week. You'll summarize the other article next week, and then after that, you'll get to speak your mind. You'll get to weigh in. I promise. But what we want to do, and here's why I said there's a method to this madness, is that we want to make sure that you truly understand the article's contents first. One of the sort of unstated objectives here is that if you go online, there are a lot of people who are very, very quick and eager to share their opinions. So eager that they often skip the article itself, right? Go to any comment section underneath a YouTube video, underneath a news story, underneath an article, and people are very, very excited to share their ideas. But often those ideas can be like knee-jerk opinions, or the things that they're raising have actually been addressed in the article if they had just taken the time to read it. There's a lot of people very, very quick to speak, but perhaps we would like people to spend some time actually thinking about the thing first and then responding. So this way, by making sure that you are taking a close look at the article and are able to accurately summarize what the article contains, this way, come week 3, because weeks 3 and 4 are dedicated to you speaking about these topics, you'll be in a better position to do so. Okay, so you won't just be I won't be reading essays that are essentially the world according to Asmir, or the world according to Charles, or the world according to Jeffrey. Jeffrey, welcome aboard. By the way, we just used your 2 biography paragraphs as an accidental example. Don't worry, we didn't say anything bad. I think we just pointed out that this paragraph should have been written in 3rd person, because we just went over the instructions for this assignment. So if you need to rewatch, because I don't think you had joined the room yet, you can always just skip back and watch that part of the lecture. I promise you, we said very nice things. Actually, both paragraphs look great. It's just that this one needs to be written in 3rd person. Okay, so yeah, that's the thing. We're not just having you doing empty exercises and summarizing. The idea here is to get you to understand the article and its contents first, and then in the second half of the month, you'll be actually sharing more and more of your opinion. Okay, I think that's what I was saying, right? Because if we don't do that, then we'll get at least potentially, we might get a very passionate essay, but an essay that is essentially, yeah, the world according to Asmir, the world according to Jeffrey, the world according to Jeffrey, and we would like you to first spend time with these articles and then respond. Okay? Then the rest of the instructions, it's a 300 to 400 word summary. Okay? Some of the tips that I just went over are kind of mentioned here. So you do have these instructions. You also have an example. Okay? Actually, let me finish up what I was saying here. Yeah, so don't include your own opinions on the issue or evaluate the author's ideas. This comes later, not now. Here, you're just summarizing. It's a completely objective piece of writing. Do not quote from the article. There's no reason to at this point because the summary is written in your own words. You're explaining to me what the article is about. Now, this should be a multiple paragraph essay. That's the other big thing I see is that the summary, some students hand in a one paragraph summary. Sometimes it's 300 words and it's a pretty good summary. Other times it's very short, but this should be multiple paragraphs. And here's the structure you can follow. Okay, so again, you can take a screenshot, you can jot down notes, or you can just go to this part of the lecture after the recording is up and freeze the frame here. So each Roman numeral here represents a separate paragraph. So first you'll have an introduction paragraph where you name the author and the title, possibly. Explain in a sentence or two what the article is about. For example, video game addiction. Explain and then end with an explanation of what the author's thesis, main stance, main argument is. All those terms can be interchangeable. Okay, so for instance, video game addiction is overstated. It should not be classified as a disorder. Okay, so that's paragraph 1. Name the author and the article, explain what the article is generally about, and end with the author's overall stance. And then you just devote separate paragraphs to separate points. So what is the key point or example from the article? What is the second key point or example from the article? Third key point. And listen, if you have more than 3, sure, if they're closely related, you might be able to combine 2 into one paragraph. These aren't hard and fast rules, but there should be an organizational process here, okay? It should not just be one ginormous paragraph that essentially does all this, but it's hard to follow because just as you don't like probably to go to a comment section where someone has written a TLDR, right? Too long didn't read post that just goes on forever and ever and ever. Probably you wouldn't be reading it anyway, even if it were in separate paragraphs, but it would probably help because who wants to read just a wall of text? Okay, so this should be a multiple paragraph essay, okay, summary. And guess what? If we look at the example, again, every single activity, assignment in this class comes with examples. So here's the example, which I already have open. You can see that this person's essay follows this format. Okay, so summary of, here's the title of the article. The Big Bang Theory is better at portraying geekdom than the haters admit. And if we look at the person's first paragraph, it mentions the author, Noel Murray. It does mention the article's title, but that's okay because it's indicated here. But notice, okay, it mentions the author, and already it starts describing what the article is generally about, that it's a response to the recent conversation surrounding the show's cancellation. Then there's another paragraph that generally describes what the article is about. He, the author, is responding to a tone of celebration about its cancellation and criticism of the show's depiction of geek culture. Okay, so this is generally what the article is about. And here's the author's main argument. Noel Murray's argument is that the show, despite its faults, generally transcends the stereotypes upon which it was built, particularly in terms of normalizing nerd culture and gender representation. Listen, the wording is maybe a little bit, I mean, it's terrific, but if you're not sure what he's saying here, he's basically saying the show's been canceled. Some people celebrated that it was canceled because they didn't like how it portrayed geek culture. But the author's takeaway is, okay, the show has some faults, but it did 2 things really well. It brought nerd culture into people's awareness, and it handled gender really well. I've never seen the show, as amazing as that might sound. I do think I know in general what it's about, right? And that seems like it's accurate. So wasn't there at least one female on the show who's kind of brainy, nerdy? They're like 2 guys, right? 2 guys who are nerdy and brainy and into science and all that stuff. Oh, there are 2 women who are both pretty smart as well. I didn't know if it was 1 or 2. Anyway, and then this person starts addressing main points. Murray begins by addressing how the show is effective in rising above the typical sitcom and depicting geek interests. Yeah, that's what I thought. There's one who's kind of normal and one who's, again, I've never seen a single episode of the show, but I feel like I know kind of what it's about. The other big show, what was that one? Something that said My Mother? Mother something. How I Met Your Mother. Isn't that a show? Yeah, yeah. Thanks, Charles. That's another one I've never seen. Okay, but then the writer moves on to another point. From this, he shifts to the important role that women play. Okay, so we see a clear movement here. 1 point, another point, moves on to another point, and this is about the length of a typical summary. You see, it's about a page and a half. That's probably around 325 to 350 words. Maybe it's coming close to 400. In general, a single page is around 300 words. And then there's a reference. And that's the last thing I have to go over, which is APA format. APA formats, you guys got to follow it because from this point on, every class here at Full Sail is going to use APA. And while some instructors don't care much, some do. I mean, I used to work in the writing center, and I would see students whose work seemed tremendous, and I couldn't believe that they failed simply because of APA. So there are some instructors who are really, really fierce about this stuff. And it's so simple that I'm going to show it right now. Okay, so I'm going to open up a blank document. I'm just going to walk you through the process. Okay, sometimes I'll have to go back because even I need to be reminded of things. Okay, so we got some basic information at the beginning. Name of course, name of assignment. Okay, so the entire document from top to bottom needs to be in Times New Roman. So we're going to set that up from the very beginning. Times New Roman 12 points. Boom. The entire document also needs to be double spaced. So I'm going to change this from single spacing 1.0 to double spacing 2.0. Boom. So we'll put the person's name. We'll call him Frank Smith. That's a student's name. Oops. I hate these new Mac keyboards. They are so shallow that I can't get a grip on any of the keys. English, or doubles the letter for no reason. English composition. And then the name of the sign, 1.5 pop culture bytes. I really can type. I can type like 60 words a minute, but it doesn't look like it. That's how bad these keyboards are. And usually there's centered, so we're going to use the center tool. A title that essentially says summary of are video games really addictive? Okay. Notice anytime the name of the article appears in the text, either in the title or the text of the essay itself, we do follow MLA rules where every major word gets capitalized or the first letter gets capitalized. If a small word appears like of, it doesn't, or the, okay? This is important because it completely changes on the references. Matthew, no, you don't need a cover page. So you don't need a cover page, you don't need a header, which we used to require going in here and doing things. Here it's APA in its simplest form. Charles says no gap between info on left and title. No, that's the thing is here, students sometimes like to create extra space, but it's unnecessary. You just have to hit enter once. Usually I don't take off points for that because it's not a big deal, but yeah, you don't have to actually put extra space. You just hit enter once. And then we begin on the left side of the page. So I use my left align tool to get back on the left. We hit tab, okay? Because that automatically indents. The first line of new paragraph always gets indented. And you can start typing here. When you get to the end of a sentence, you hit a period, of course. But then you hit your spacebar twice. 1, 2, and you continue. Now I'm going to copy this so I can fill up a whole bunch of space. And then when it's about the length of a paragraph, oops. I don't know why it keeps doing that. Here, let me copy all this. Okay. Yeah, that looks like a paragraph. So I'm going to fill up a whole bunch of space. Now, when you reach the end of a paragraph, you hit enter just once, not twice, not 3 times, just once. tab to indent, and you keep going. Okay. Now, because it's all the same words, you can start typing here, you can start typing here. It looks like gibberish, but yeah, you don't need to do this. Open a novel sometime. You don't see space between paragraphs. Like, it might seem cramped, but it's not really. Um, this person's essay, see, there's no extra space between paragraphs, but it looks fine. Trust me, it looks better without extra space in between. Like I say, and pick up any book, you don't see extra spaces between paragraphs. It looks weird. Okay, so I'm going to fill up even more space to pretend that we're at the end of the summary. Here, I'll put one more paragraph. Wherever your summary ends, then you create a reference. So we just put the word, we center, so I'm going to go back to my center tool, and we put the word references. Not works cited, not bibliography, not sources, just these simple word references. It's not bolded, it's not italicized, it doesn't have a colon after it, just a simple word references. Now, if you want to create more space, that's fine. Okay, references. Charles says writing software automatically adds an extra space after a period. Still double. The rule is you're supposed to hit your space bar twice after a period. I don't know what software automatically. I never had that issue. Matthew says why? Why two spaces? It's just the rule. You hit a period and you hit your space bar twice. If there's only one space, it might not look too cramped to you, but it does to my eyes. Two spaces is standard. Typewriters used to look too close to the period. Well, that's where I learned. I'm old enough where I learned on a typewriter when I took typing class. And even back then, we learned period, two spaces, and then you keep typing. Okay, so I'm going to teach you what's standard. I do realize that people might have different settings or different publications. You might take a close look and it looks like the sentences are closer, but standard issues, and I believe, well, actually, this one, it looks like he's only putting one space, right? I can't quite tell. Is that two spaces or one? Maybe it's two. I'll just teach you two is standard. Okay. So now we're going to create our reference. Now you have two choices. You can either look at the example and just, where is it? And do the same thing. Okay, so just as this person, put the author's last name, comma, first initial, date in parentheses, title of the article, title of the publication. I'll just do it in real time using this article here. So anybody who chooses this video game article, you're getting a treat because I'm going to show you in real time how to do this. And that is, we hit enter once. We start on the left. We don't indent. Okay, we will indent, but it's the opposite. I'll show you in a moment. So it's Lewis, comma, M for Mark, period. Space. Now here's the here's the irony. I'm only hitting space once. Don't ask me why. I could put two, but for some reason, I don't know. Yeah, don't ask. I don't know. Then we put the year 2018, comma, 2018, comma, the date, June 20th. We don't put the TH, and we don't abbreviate the month. So for October, we would write out October. Okay? So in this case, it's June 20th, period. And then the title of the article. But here's the thing. Remember when I said earlier that if the title of the article appears here or anywhere in your essay, that you do capitalize every major word? On the references, you do not. This is what makes APA confusing for some people. We type the article title as we would a regular sentence. So are video games really addictive? Okay, that's a rule. We capitalize as we would a normal sentence. Now, if a proper noun appeared somewhere, like Tuesday, we would still capitalize it because we would capitalize it normally in a sentence. Okay, if you can remember this rule, you'll impress me. Then we put the publication name in parentheses in italics. Excuse me. This is from The Guardian. And after every section of information, so author's name, period, date, period. This already has end punctuation, so that's fine. Name of publication, period. Then we type the words retrieved from, and we just grab the URL, the web address, okay, and put it in here. Match destination formatting, that's fine. I hate when the hyperlink is shown, so I'm going to say remove hyperlink. I did that by right-clicking on it. Now, I don't know why it's been single-spaced, but we'll change that to double-spaced because the entire document should be double-spaced. And the other thing is, with normal paragraphs, we indent the first line of a new paragraph, but not the other lines. Here it's the opposite. We do not indent the first line, but if it goes to a second or third line, we do indent those. So I'm just going to highlight them and drag the bottom half of this hourglass half an inch. Boom. There's a reference. And we still call it references, even though there's just one reference. Okay? So choose. You can either copy this person's information, not the exact, replacing it with your own article's information. Now, why is this in italics? Because you do italicize the names of like movies, television shows, books. So again, the article title, which is this, sorry, didn't expect it to actually take me there. Here's the article title. Okay, so it is capitalized just as you would a regular sentence. The name of the show would be capitalized in a normal sentence. It would also be italicized in a normal sentence. But everything else is lowercase. Okay, so you can either copy this person's reference in the example, or you can go back to this lecture and simply follow along with my steps. Same deal, okay? And those of you who are choosing the video game article, well, I've already given you the answer. Here's how your reference needs to look. So don't be surprised if there are problems in the reference when I say, but I did this in the lecture. I showed you how it should look. All you had to do is copy it. But again, these basics, okay? Knowing how to put a document in Times New Roman 12-point font, because that's standard. Knowing how to double space a document. Knowing how to create a basic reference. We're not getting into in-text citations yet because you don't need to quote in the summary. In week 3, when we do get to that, I'll show you how to create in-text citations. But if you can follow this basic layout, you'll be good for all your other classes, okay? Because I think this is what your future instructors mostly want to see. Can you produce a standard document? Can you create a reference? And then later, can you create an in-text citation? Things are getting noisy here. I don't know if you can hear it, but there's like a huge crowd here, even though I'm in a private room. But the good news is we're at the end of the lecture. I do try to keep these to an hour or less, because after an hour, I start to lose people. So questions, if people have them, either about week 1 stuff, about the class as a whole, about the assignments for this week, APA, I'm going to hang out for a little bit and answer those. But if you don't have questions, if everything we've gone over is clear, you don't have to hang around. Okay, I thank you for showing up. And hopefully I'll see you next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Let's see, Charles says, can you show how to do in-text citations? Yeah, we're going to do that later because that won't be relevant till week 3 because that involves quotations. And you shouldn't be having any quotations in the summary. Everything should be in your own words. But we will cover it. And I will cover it in real time. Okay, so you can see exactly how it works. But yeah, that comes later. You're welcome. You're welcome, people. Asmir, Charles. Again, I'll hang out for a bit. It looks like questions aren't really coming through very much, so I'll probably stop the recording in a bit. Actually, it's so noisy. I'll stop the recording now.